Upon your employment, or let me back up, during your academy training, did you receive a book that is created or published by the Miami-Dade Police Sheriff's Office that contains a summary of Florida criminal laws?
It was a Florida statute book.
Did you cover and read that book as part of your academy training?
We had a section of law that they came in and taught.
Did any of that section of law in your police academy training include dealing with lawfully armed citizens?
To my recollection, they talked about firearms.
So they talked about firearms.
Talking about firearms and how to deal with people with firearms, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. Did they talk about how to deal with criminals who were armed with firearms?
Yes.
Did they talk specifically about how to deal with people who were carrying lawfully under Florida state law?
I can't remember.
You can't remember if they did or didn't, or...
Remember if they did or didn't, sir.
Since your academy training and before the incident on June 24th, 2018, let's back up. If I say the incident on June 24th, 2018, you understand that is the incident that is the subject of this lawsuit?
Correct.
That occurred on the Miami Beach South Point Pier.
Correct.
Between your academy training and the incident on June 24th, 2018, did you receive any supplemental training from your department about dealing with citizens who were lawfully carrying firearms?
No, not to my recollection.
Officer, do you have now or have you ever had a Florida concealed weapons firearms license issued by the Department of Agriculture?
Are you talking about me carrying
Yes, sir.
a concealed one? I have a concealed weapons license.
Okay. When did you get that CWFL?
I can't remember off the top of my head. It's been already probably a few years.
Okay. Do you know if you had it on the date of the incident we're here about today?
I believe so, yes.
Do you remember, as part of the application process for getting, you did an application to get that license from the Department of Agriculture?
Yes.
Okay. In that application process, do you remember signing an application that you were swearing to under oath?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Do you remember language on that application that specifically stated you had read and understood Chapter 790 regarding Florida firearms laws?
I cannot remember.
Okay. But if I showed you a copy of that application, you did do that application to get your license?
Yes, it's required.
Even as a police officer, you have to do that application to get that license?
As a police officer, I believe it's required for everybody.
Okay.
To my recollection.
All right. To get a concealed carry license?
Yes, sir.
It's required that you do that application?
Yes.
Okay. But you don't remember if there was that statement on there that you had read and understood Chapter 790 Florida
I
firearms
cannot
law?
remember at this moment.
Okay. Officer, do you know now, as you sit here today, do you know what specific statute allows you as a police officer to openly carry a firearm while you're on duty?
It would be that statute now.
What statute?
790.
Is it specifically 790.25?
Yes, sir.
And is it specifically 790.25 sub 3?
3H if I'm not mistaken.
3H.
Sorry, if I'm
That's
not
okay.
mistaken.
No,
I'm not mistaken.
no, I'm not trying to trip you up here, officer. On
No,
this.
but I know it's 790.25.3. But I don't know if there's an H after. I can be wrong.
Well, I can tell you H is the hunting, fishing, camping exception. How about if I tell you it was 790.25 sub 3D? Was the sheriff, police officers, game wardens.
Okay, I know about the 790.25 subsection 3, but it said H, so I can be mistaken.
That's right. You've never had training on that prior to the date of the incident we're here about today?
No, sir.
Have you had training on it since the date of the incident?
Yes, sir.
Where did you get that training?
At our police station in our training unit. No, it was part of our annual training. It was thrown into the curriculum.
Do you know when that happened?
I cannot remember off the top of my head, sir.
You don't remember if it was covered as part of that book of Florida statutes that you were given us at the police academy, if it was in that too?
I cannot remember. I know they did an orientation on it and explained it to us, but I can't remember
At the
if
training?
if they brought in the book.
Okay.
I can't remember.
You're talking about at the training
At
after
the training.
the incident.
After the incident.
Okay. You don't remember if y'all covered that part of the book that Miami-Dade publishes in your original academy training?
After the incident?
Before the incident?
Oh, before the incident? No.
You didn't cover it?
No.
Okay.
If you're talking about before the incident, no, it was never covered.
How did you first find out that you needed to come to the pier?
I know officers were dispatched to the pier, reference men carrying firearms. I can't remember if I was actually dispatched or I responded myself to assist the officers.
Okay, so you don't remember if dispatch said, hey, Officer Garcia, get your butt there now, or if you just heard the
I
call?
just put myself en route to the call to assist the officers.
Did you have a chance to review your body cam footage prior to today?
Yes, sir.
When did you take a chance to review that body cam footage?
Yesterday.
Had you looked at it between the incident and yesterday? Had you looked at it any time in between those two?
To my recollection, I don't believe so.
That's based on my review, that's what I saw. Do you remember what the park ranger told you and the other three officers?
From my recollection, I believe it was on the line that he said there was gentlemen on the pier with firearms and they weren't complying.
Okay, he told you they were on the pier with firearms and they were not complying.
Yeah.
And did he explain what he meant by not complying?
I can't remember his exact words. Like I said, those were only the main facts I can remember at this point.
Okay. Do you know why y'all weren't recording audio when you were talking to him initially?
Once again, I can't remember. I only have 16 and 15.
14's numbered up at the top.
Yeah, that's just a picture of the narrative.
Okay, that was the next question I was going to ask you. So there's a picture of the narrative on 14, but that is your narrative, right?
I believe so.
Okay. And then 15 and 16 is actually like the Miami Beach Police form with your narrative as page 16, right?
Correct.
All right. And Sergeant Baldock signed off on your narrative as he reviewed it, right?
Correct.
And your badge number is 1046?
Correct.
And that was your badge number on that day?
Correct.
Park ranger tells you that there's armed men on the pier and they're not complying, but he didn't tell you what they weren't. You don't remember if he told you what they weren't complying with?
I don't know the exact wording he used, sir.
Okay. So you don't even know if he used the word not complying?
No, he used it. They weren't complying.
Okay. But do you remember him?
To my recollection, I'm not mistaken, it's referenced a sign being on the pier that no firearms are allowed on the pier.
Okay.
To my recollection.
Do you have any idea who would have put up that sign in terms of a legal entity like the City of Miami Beach?
No, sir.
Do you know if the name City of Miami Beach was on the sign?
I don't know, sir. I'm only was focused on the gentleman with the firearms.
At any point during that day, did you go look at that sign?
No, sir.
Never did?
Nope, because I was with the individuals.
Okay. Towards the end of the day, after the incident was over, were you posted at the end of the pier to monitor and keep anybody else from coming on the pier?
Yes.
Okay. Was the sign near where you were standing when you were...
To my recollection, I can't remember.
Let me finish my
No, go
question.
ahead.
Sorry. Where were you standing when you were keeping the pier closed to anybody coming on it?
In front of the pier.
At the entrance to the pier?
To the pier, yes.
So where the sidewalk turns from concrete to going onto the wood or fake wood that makes up the pier, that's where you were?
A little furthermore, yeah, right to the entrance because it's a long entrance.
Okay. And you don't remember seeing a sign there?
No, sir.
On that day, was it your understanding that if you saw a sign from the City of Miami Beach that said no firearms, that meant no firearms were allowed there?
Objection of form.
You can answer the question.
Repeat the question?
Was it on June 24th, 2018, did you believe that if there was a sign saying no firearms posted, that could be applied to anybody to kick them off for having a firearm?
Objection of form.
You can answer the question.
I believe so, if it says no firearms. But at the end of the day, our concern was more of worrying about the citizens and our safety.
Okay. We'll get to citizen concerns and your safety in a minute. I'm asking you about signs and your understanding at the time.
I understand.
So on that morning when you went on that pier, your understanding of Florida law, city ordinances was if there's a sign that says no firearms, it means no firearms.
Objection to form.
You can answer the question.
Once again, we're going by what the park ranger is touching to my recollection.
Okay. So you were relying on the park rangers take statements to you that firearms were not allowed on the pier.
Objection to form.
At the end of the day, no, I'm taking the objection that there's men with firearms on a pier in a public park with beachgoers and families and children.
Okay. So you take objection to the fact that there were men on the pier with firearms.
Objection to form.
I don't understand your question. Can you repeat
You said
it?
at the end of the day, I take objection to the fact that there were men on the pier with firearms. Wasn't that what you just said?
Objection to form.
You can answer the question.
So you're telling me, just rephrase the question because I'm a little...
Okay. Did I understand that you just testified that you took objection that day to the fact that there were men on the pier with firearms?
Objection to form.
You can answer the question.
If I take it there's an objection
Did
to
you
men?
have, yes, sir. Did you have an objection to the fact there were men on the pier with firearms?
So you're thinking if I object to men having firearms on the pier?
Yes, sir.
Objection to form.
I would, because I'm concerned for the safety of citizens.
Okay. So you believed that firearms should not be on the pier that day?
Objection to form.
At the end of the day, once again, I'm going to elaborate.
You're what?
I'm going to state like I stated previously.
Okay.
Our concern is for the safety of the people in the park.
And do you believe
We
that...
have to investigate when we're called with men with firearms.
Okay. Officer, I'm not asking you about...
No, I'm just doing...
Not asking you about
Sorry.
investigating.
Sorry again.
The question I'm asking is, you indicated just now, as I understood, what I understood your testimony to be, and I just want to make sure it's clear for the record. Do you believe that there is a safety concern when men have guns on a pier in public?
Yes, there is a safety concern.
Why is there a safety concern when men have guns in public, Officer Garcia?
Because it's the world we live in today. We just had the Parkland shooting. We had a man walk into stores in El Paso and shoot people. Mind you, again, this park has beachgoers on one side, has families and kids in the park right next door, and you have cruise ships who go in and out with tourists on board. How am I not to believe there's terrorists with the world that we're in today, sir?
Okay.
Or at the time also of the incident.
Do you understand that citizens in Florida have certain civil rights?
Yes.
Okay. Were you trained in the police academy that people have civil rights that you're not allowed to violate even as a police officer?
To my recollection, yes.
You were taught that?
If I'm not mistaken, yes.
Okay. Were you taught that there is a civil right in the state of Florida to own and possess firearms?
A right to own firearms?
To own and possess firearms?
Yes.
You were taught that?
Yes, to my recollection, if I'm not mistaken.
But you were not taught, if I understood your earlier testimony correct, you were not taught anything about concealed carry licenses and citizens' rights to have firearms on their person in public in regard to a concealed carry license.
Objection to form.
I can't remember at the time because they did go over a lot of curriculum
Okay.
with firearms being concealment and dealing with criminals like you asked earlier.
Okay.
But I can't remember everything that went over.
As you sit here today, do you think there was anything you did wrong in how you handled the incident that morning?
No.
Have you been informed of any case decisions since the incident that would require you to modify what you did that day?
I can't remember.
So on the date of the incident, was it your understanding that you were allowed to detain any person for the possession of a firearm that you believe was armed?
Objection to form.
Yes.
So you didn't need a reasonable articulable suspicion that they were carrying that firearm illegally?
Objection to form.
Once again, in our policy.
Your policy, okay. Tell me about your policy.
Not even the policy, just even the way we're trained.
Okay.
Pretty much states that when dealing with someone with a firearm, all right, we are to do a process of records check on them and records check on the firearm. because we need to identify they're not convicted felons, or the firearm isn't stolen or involved in any crime.
Okay. So I want to be very careful. Is that your policy as you understand it today?
Policy, no, that's the way we were trained.
Okay. Is that, so as you sit here today, you have not received any training through today that says anything other than what you just stated?
Objection to the form.
Of any training of that sort?
Yes.
No.
Okay. So your training, let's go back specifically to your training on the date of the incident, or as you arrived at the incident. Your training when you arrived at the incident was that any person carrying a firearm, you have a right to stop and detain to determine, to run a records check on that person and on the firearm they're carrying.
We have to make sure there's no threat to the public.
Sir, I didn't ask you about why you needed to do it. I asked you if that was your understanding of the City of Miami Beach's policy and your training on that morning. Was it your training on that morning that you were to stop any individual with a firearm to check their background and the firearm?
Objection to the form and argumentative.
Okay. You can answer the question.
Yes.
That was your training, okay. And you've received no training since then to tell you anything differently?
No, sir.
Is it also part of your training to disarm any armed person you come in contact with?
Objection to form.
Yes.
Is that a matter of your training that you do that?
Our safety.
Were you trained that you should disarm any armed person you come in contact with?
Yes.
Do you know if that is also the policy of the City of Miami Beach Police Department?
I can't remember.
I'm going to rephrase the question. Do you know if it is the City of Miami? Do you know if it is the policy of the City of Miami Beach Police Department that you as an officer should disarm any person you come in contact with who is armed?
Objection to form.
You can answer the question. Is that a yes?
Like I said, it's training,
Okay.
and they're trained, and that's how they train us.
Who trained you?
With the police department.
The
And
City of Miami.
academy. The academy trained us,
Okay.
and then going into the police department.
Okay.
Same training.
So the City of Miami Beach Police Department, consistent with the training you received at the academy, told you or led you to understand that you should disarm any person who you came in contact with who was carrying a firearm.
Yes.
Objection to form with a question.
And then they also trained you that once you disarm that person, you should run a background check on that person to see if they were legal to carry the firearm.
Yes.
Objection to form.
And then they also trained you that you should run that firearm serial number to see if it had been reported lost or stolen.
Objection to
Yes.
form.